Right now, you're probably drinking, or about to, and in a few minutes, you're going to forget you ever did it. But here's something that's going to ruin that drink for you in the best way possible. What you're doing right now is not a few thousand-year-old human habit. It's not even a human habit. It's older than farming, older than writing, older than humans. It started 10 million years ago on a forest floor in Africa. And it didn't start with a person, it started with a piece of rotting fruit. Here's the theory. In 2014, a biologist named Robert Dudley published a book that quietly rewrote the history of alcohol. It's called The Drunken Monkey, and his argument is this. When fruit falls off a tree and just sits there, the sugars inside start to break down, yeast moves in, fermentation kicks off, and that fruit starts producing trace amounts of ethanol, alcohol, by accident. Now imagine a small primate, millions of years before humans exist, eating that fruit. They feel something, a little lighter, a little looser. They don't know why, they just know they want more of it. That's it. That's the whole origin story. Not a campfire, not a ritual, an accident on a forest floor that felt good enough to chase. And over millions of years, that craving didn't fade, it got built in. By the time actual humans show up, the taste for alcohol isn't something we're going to invent later. It's already wired into us. We just don't know how to make it yet. So did we figure that out? In 2018, archaeologists were digging through a cave near Haifa, Israel. The cave is called Rakafet, and the people who used it, a group called the Natufians, were living there roughly 13,000 years ago. Inside, they found stone mortars carved directly into the bedrock, and when they tested the residue inside those mortars, they found something that shouldn't have been there yet: beer. Wheat and barley, soaked, sprouted, and deliberately left to ferment, brewed on purpose 13,000 years ago. Here's why that's strange. The Natufians weren't farmers. Agriculture didn't exist yet. These were hunter-gatherers, collecting wild grain by hand, killing their own food, sleeping wherever they ended up. They had no permanent home, no crops, no plan. But somehow brewing was important enough to figure out before farming was. And for a long time, archaeologists told the story backwards: civilization first, farming, villages, stability, and then, somewhere down the line, alcohol shows up as a side hobby. Rakafet Cave says the opposite. These people were brewing while they were still wandering, and they weren't alone. About 1,000 years later, somebody in southeastern Turkey decided to build something that frankly shouldn't exist yet either. It's called Göbekli Tepe, massive stone pillars, some over 10 tons, arranged in deliberate circles, carved with animals, precise, intentional, enormous. Built by people with no farms, no pottery, no permanent homes. For years, this site broke archaeologists' assumptions. Moving a 10-ton stone up a hill and carving it takes organized labor. It takes people showing up again and again, working together. Hunter-gatherers aren't supposed to do that. There's no chief, no granary, no reason to cooperate at that scale. Unless there was a reason, and then they found it. Massive stone vats at the site, and inside them, chemical traces of fermented grain. People were brewing at Göbekli Tepe, not a cup here and there, enough for a crowd. The leading theory now is that this wasn't a village, it was a destination. People traveled in from across the region for one purpose: to gather and to drink together. Which leads to a much bigger question, one that's been argued over for decades. Why did humans start farming in the first place? The popular answer is bread. We wanted stable food, so we domesticated grain, and bread followed naturally. Patrick McGovern doesn't buy it. He's the leading archaeobotanist studying the history of alcohol, and his theory is the one that's been quietly gaining ground. We didn't start farming to make bread, we started farming to make beer. Here's his logic. Bread is hard. You have to grind grain, knead dough, build an oven, bake it just right. Beer is almost insulting in how easy it is. Soak grain in water, walk away. Fermentation does the rest by itself. If you're an early human deciding whether settling down and farming is worth the effort, guaranteed bread is a weak pitch. Guaranteed beer is a much stronger one. If McGovern is right, alcohol isn't something civilization produced after it got going. Alcohol might be the reason civilization started at all. By 7000 BCE, the evidence stops being theoretical. In a Neolithic village called Jiahu in central China, archaeologists found pottery jars holding the residue of a fermented drink made from rice, honey, grapes, and hawthorn berries, confirmed by chemical analysis. This is the oldest known alcoholic recipe on Earth. And it's not crude, it's not an accident, it's a blend, multiple ingredients deliberately combined. Someone 9,000 years ago knew exactly what they were doing, and they were already experimenting. From there, it doesn't slow down, it explodes. By the time ancient Egypt rolls around, beer isn't a treat, it's infrastructure. The workers who built the pyramids were paid in it, 4 to 5 liters a day. Not coins, not grain, beer was the salary. And it made sense, because Nile water was often unsafe to drink straight. The brewing process filtered it. Beer was weirdly the clean option. It also packed in calories. For someone hauling limestone in 100-degree heat, that mattered as much as the buzz. So beer wasn't just a drink in ancient Egypt. It was your paycheck, your water filter, and your lunch all in one cup. And then there's the part that really seals it. Religion. The Egyptians believed beer was a gift from Osiris himself. It showed up in temple offerings, in burial rites, in actual medical prescriptions. Doctors mixed herbs into beer to treat infections and stomach problems. One drink, doing the job of a salary, a water treatment plant, a meal, a medicine cabinet, and a prayer. So here's the full timeline, and it's worth saying out loud because it doesn't sound real. 10 million years ago, your ancestors were chasing fermented fruit through the forest. 13,000 years ago, they were brewing beer in caves before they'd ever planted a seed. 12,000 years ago, they may have built one of the first monuments in human history just to have somewhere to drink together. 9,000 years ago, they had a recipe. 15,000 years ago, entire civilizations were running on it. Alcohol didn't show up after we built civilization. There's a real chance it's the reason we built civilization at all. So the next time you have a drink and don't think twice about it, you're not doing something modern, you're not even doing something human. You're finishing something a primate started on a forest floor 10 million years before anyone had a word for drink. We just figured out how to do it on purpose. If your mind just got blown a little, that's literally what we do here. Subscribe to Stickilo because the next one is even weirder.